Hello and welcome to another Win Daily Show. My name is Michael Raziel. I have Joel mid-draft. I have Sia as always. Joel, how you doing tonight? Are you excited? Are you going to take home this Win Daily Sports League tonight?
So there's nothing more exciting than draft night, right? I'm super pumped about the draft night. I apologize in advance to the podcast as I will be distracted as I draft mid-podcast, but I am super excited.
Well, we are very excited too. We are going to be talking about the 2020 Tour Championship. Of course, this is our PGA stream, but we thought, we have a member of the crew here tonight. They're going to be drafting, so C and I, we'll have some commentary. We'll have some quirks. We'll make fun of some people, and I think we'll have a good time. You excited, Sia?
So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Sia, why aren't you in the Win Daily draft, right?
No,
so I think
you're going to crush everybody. Why? That's unfair. Why would you be in the draft?
Okay, so don't steal the lead, Michael. Let me just explain why I was going to crush everybody. Because everybody knows I'm in 3 big leagues every year, and that I'm going for the three-peat in 2 of them and the repeat in 1 of them. I won all 3 last year. No big deal. So guys like Joel, who are relatively new to Win Daily, I don't want to take their money and their pride because that affects our subscribers, Michael.
That's true.
And that's selfish at the end of the day. So just as an act of, I don't know, kindness, charity, if you will, I'm going to let Jason and Joel and Nick at Sticks Picks and all those guys fight for a pot and then hopefully donate to charity like we did last week, Michael.
Yes, like we did last week on our show with RG3. It was absolutely a blast. He was incredible. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out on the Win Daily Sports YouTube page. Obviously, we put it up on the website as well, so you can go back and listen to it in podcast form, of course. But he was wonderful. I am so grateful that we got the opportunity to chat with him. Of course, we donated a bunch of money to his charity. It was absolutely fantastic, and it was wonderful. Joel, update me on the draft, man. What do you got so far? Joel's
I just made my first pick, so I had the 6th overall pick. It's a PPR league. Oh, can you hear me now?
You're good. You're good.
We're good.
We're back. Okay. So I had the 6th overall pick. It's a PPR league. So I normally would go running back here, but because of the PPR, I thought I got an advantage. I just took Michael Thomas.
All right. We're gonna.
And Joel, can you tell us? And we're actually gonna. This is gonna be kind of fun actually because we're gonna talk about PGA and then we're gonna be tracking sort of your draft at the same time, and then we'll just kind of cut out of PGA and talk to your draft exclusively. But can you just answer this question? You said it's PPR. You said you have the 6th pick. Is it 12 teams?
12 teams, correct.
Okay. And is it kind of a standard setup with like 2 receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex?
Precisely. That is exactly what it is. Yep.
Gotcha. Yes. My last question is quarterbacks. Do they get 6 points for passing touchdowns or 4, or maybe you don't know?
4.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, cool.
An important question to ask for all of you listening, because that makes a big difference as to where you draft your quarterback. Awesome. So you got Michael Thomas.
Not bad.
All right. So I'm really curious to see what's available to you on the way back. I think you might be able to get maybe that last good elite running back, but I don't want to skew your draft. You draft however you want to, obviously.
I'm going to cross my fingers for you, Joel. We are going to cross your fingers for you. But yes, we are going to also be, obviously, as I said, talking about the 2020 Tour Championship. It's at Eastlake. It's down in Atlanta. It's beginning of September, so I'm sure it's pretty darn hot down there. Sia, you are my resident lawyer, medical salesman, I guess weatherman today. What's the weather like down? I know you're in Florida, but I feel like Atlanta and Florida, they're like cousins at this point.
Yeah, basically the same thing. No, I don't think, it's a good question. I haven't actually looked into the weather issues, but I don't think there really will be weather issues. If there is a weather edge, we'll know, like, keep in mind, this starts Friday. So we're actually 3 days removed. So even if I kind of had an idea of what the weather was going to be with respect to like a windy afternoon on Friday versus a calm Friday morning, it would almost be meaningless at this point because we would really want to be dialed into the weather the day before, not necessarily the night before, but at least the day before. So Thursday we'll be in Discord. And we'll probably actually be publishing some more articles, Wednesday into Thursday. So because this is sort of on a 1-day delay. So check in with us on Discord because we'll have all the answers to those questions.
We'll have all the answers as we always do. And yes, it's a very weird field. It's 30 people. It's a weird and wacky setup, but I'm very excited to get into it. So Sia, what are just some of the things, if you don't mind, give us a little bit of an understanding of how exactly this last of the playoff tournaments work. And I know it's like it's already tiered, right? The first person starting at 10 under or something. So talk to me a little bit about that so the people understand what we're getting with.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the big thing. So because of points that were earned up until this point, whoever's leading in the FedEx Cup points, which happens to be Dustin Johnson, as you might expect, he's starting 10 strokes above the guys that are in 30th place, 29th, 28th, 27th. And so everybody in the middle gets what we call starting strokes as well. So, and it goes down based on points, right? So Dustin Johnson starts at -10, which is obviously a big advantage, not just for Dustin Johnson and for him winning outright, but also if you're obviously playing DraftKings or FanDuel, he is going to start with those 30 finishing position points that you would get in DraftKings. So, and then John Rahm is second. He starts at -8. So he's starting with that, the second finishing point. So right before you even start, like if you were to have a team with let's say Dustin Johnson and John Rahm, you're getting first and second finishing points. So you'll kind of be in the lead. You can look at your team and depending on how you orchestrate it, you could have you could be in the top 10 or something, or at least tied for the top 10. So that's sort of how it works. And then just to go down the list real quick, there's only 30 golfers. So Justin Thomas is -7, Webb Simpson is -6, Colin Morikawa is -5. And then after that, they group 5 golfers that are -4, 5 golfers that are -3, -2, -1, and then 5 that are playing at even par.
Man, that is crazy. And these prices are just insane right now. We have Dustin Johnson at 15.2, John Rahm at 12.7, Justin Thomas at 11.9, Webb Simpson at 11, Morikawa. So we'll break into this top range, which is pretty crazy. I forgot to bring it up, and I just want to talk to you guys. That putt by John Rahm, that was insane. I have to know, Joel, how much money did he win you with that putt?
So he did not win me any, but it was not only was that putt insane, but Dustin Johnson's putt to get there was like an electric golf finish. I mean, for a golf match to have that kind of just action, it was so exciting. I wasn't making or losing really any money. I was kind of dead, but it was still one of the most exciting finishes I'd ever watched with no action on the line. It was a ton of fun. But one thing I do want to touch on for this tournament, kind of just going to piggybacking a little bit on what Sia was saying, is while, yes, you get the advantage for the starting points for the guys who are getting their strokes, you don't get birdies. And so you get the way you win is by accumulating the most birdies in this tournament. So that is a factor, right? So if a guy who is not getting the strokes, if you like him to kind of get up, it's way more valuable because you're going to get those birdie points. And if they pass somebody, they're going to get those leadership points anyway. So keep that in mind. Don't be too chalky with the top of the leaderboard because if you like someone below, that's how you're going to win. You have to hit the guy that's going to gain strokes, get the birdies, and the leadership points in addition.
I love that.
Yeah, I totally agree. With 30 players and with those guys at the top, even if we go as far down as Webb Simpson at -6, who I think is going to be pretty popular as well, even though he skipped last week, DJ and John Rahm, people are just going to want to fit one of those two guys in their lineup for the most part. So it's a really, really good week to be really contrarian and just kind of hope, through whatever research you have or that we have, that some of those -3 and -4 guys start passing guys, because like Joel said, they're getting the birdie points, but then all of a sudden they're flipping the script and getting the finishing position points too. So I know, I don't know how many lineups I'm going to build relative to other weeks because it is kind of a funky tournament with the only 30 players in the starting strokes being applied. But, let's say I was going to make 10 lineups. I mean, probably 6 of them, if not, I would say 5 of them won't include Dustin Johnson and won't include John Rahm, may not even include Justin Thomas. I might start some with Webb Simpson, and then I might be super contrarian, start some with Hideki at -4, because over 4 days, and this is a tough course, all it takes is DJ and John Rahm and Justin Thomas to have, 1 or 2 bad days just on the front end with a couple double bogeys here, a couple double bogeys there. And all of a sudden you are just crushing people because your -4 people and your -3 people, like a Brendan Todd, for example, have flipped the script, so to speak.
And yeah, obviously it's going to be pretty difficult for some of those guys to make up -10, to make up -9, -8. But again, as you guys were saying, you still need those birdies. You still need, if they can pass a couple people, that's money. But if you can also get all those birdies, I think that point's pretty important.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that's the first thought I had too. It's how you going to pass -10. But keep this in mind: only one guy is -10, right? So what if Johnson goes 3 over? Well, now it's not -10. You have to pass anymore. It's not like you're 10 strokes behind everyone. So don't overplay that, right? He's -10. It's just him though, and then Rahm is 1 behind there. So if none of those top guys go over, then it's almost like a neutral playing field. So and there's only 30 guys, and they're the 30 best golfers in the world, right? Now, maybe not technically, but by ranking points, they're 30 of the best golfers in the world. So another interesting thing to think about in pricing is they skewed the pricing to those points. So obviously, you never see a guy priced as high as you will see Johnson and Rom normally, but you'll also never see guys priced as low as you'll see the bottom of the pack. There's guys in the 5,000s, which isn't a normal thing. So roster construction normalizes a bit because of that, because the top guys are a little bit higher, but the bottom guys are lower. So when you want to go stars and scrubs, it kind of averages out anyway.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I like that. But let's get a draft update. How many more picks have you gone through?
So I got one more pick. It was too good a value. My draft strategy is take the best player available in PPR. DeAndre Hopkins is on the board, so I snagged him. So now we're looking at Thomas and Hopkins.
So running backs.
So tell me which running backs were available at that spot.
So there wasn't anyone there that I was really loving, and considering DeAndre Hopkins, who could be the best receiver, was there. It wasn't really a competition for me. The best running back on the board was, the next running back taken was James Conner, who I don't really love myself. And the next best running back on the board that's still available is, I don't even see one on my screen. So that's Chris Carson. And the guy I'm going to take next. And I don't know if anyone in the league is listening to this, so I'm hesitant to say who it is because they might know, but there's a guy I'm targeting next who I really like at running back.
We don't need to know who you want next. I just want to talk about who you've taken and who was available. Like I want to know what the debate was, because you are actually starting. This is really good that you're starting a draft off like this, because this is probably going to be the contrarian style, right? With even in a PPR league with these two monster receivers, most people are just so desperate for running backs because the depth isn't there. So we are kind of in a modified, depending on what you do next, zero running back strategy. And so we'll have to see what you end up doing, because I think between rounds like 4 and 9, you'll still have some running backs to pick from that have the upside, but maybe the low floor too. So I'm curious to see what you do.
I'm very excited for that, but hopping back, this is going to be a fun show. This is going to be
a
really
cool. I actually like
45 minutes to an hour. I'm pretty excited for this. So, Sia, let's start with you while Joel is doing his draft. And don't worry, Joel, we'll get to you. So let's start with just that top, those top guys above 10K. We'll call it the elite range, I guess. It's, as I said, some weird and wacky pricing. You usually don't see something like this, but 15-2 for a golfer is just absolutely insane. As you said, most of your lineups, or at least half of your lineups, won't include Rom or Johnson, but give me the case for your lineups to include Rom or Johnson.
Well, they're playing the best golf. Rom is interesting because I think the rap on him previously was, at a course that's as tough as what last week was, when he sort of goes off kilter, his temper sort of gets the best of him. And then all of a sudden, things sort of go awry. Well, that didn't happen last week. And honestly, he's been good now for like a month or two, like really, really elite good. And it's weird. The guy's only 25 years old, I believe. He's just playing really well. Nothing seems to rattle him right now. So if I was going to make the case between the two, I would definitely take Rom over Dustin Johnson. But, you can't argue with how Dustin Johnson's playing either. I'm looking at the ownership, and I kind of thought DJ was so high price that maybe his ownership would be down relative to the rest of the elite guys. It kind of is. It's only 25% right now, which Rom is 27%, JT is 30%, Webb is 25%, and Colin, again, who was at -5, is 18%. So I guess that's reasonable ownership percentage. But like I said, I might squeeze one of those two guys, probably Rom, in a few lineups, but I'm just going to take the contrarian view and just go below those guys.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much all of them?
Pretty much all of them. Let's put it this way. If I have 10 lineups, I would say 2 are going to have Rom, 1's going to have Dustin Johnson, 1's going to have Justin Thomas, 2 are going to have Webb Simpson. That gives me 4 lineups left, and then I'll just go super contrarian and just maybe have a Rory in there. Start with a Decky and a Bryson. But I just don't think I'm going to have a lot of that top range, that super top range.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Joel, how about you? How about just talking about that very high top end range?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting away from Dustin, just the way he's been playing. He was, if you guys remember, we came on and we talked about him on my first podcast I came on. He had just blown up, and it was almost like you can't touch him. And since that happened, he turned it on, and he's been by far the best golfer. And so it can go either way, right? He can blow up and be completely out of the field, and he can be the best golfer in the world by a lot. So we've seen both of them. We've seen the best golfer in the world out of him more recently. And with a 10-stroke advantage, I'm definitely going to have some of him, but he's say he's probably the only guy in the top range I'm really targeting. If for one small strategy, and maybe I'll probably do one of my lineups, is I will do one with probably a Rom and Johnson, and then try and go like a real stars and scrubs, and then try and filter the bottom, because the one thing I'm noticing about this player pool is these are the top 30 guys in the FedEx Cup, right? So when you're looking at the guys labeled in this price in the 7,000s versus the 5, there's not a big difference. So it wouldn't shock me at all for a guy who's the cheapest guy in this field to have a good round. So therefore, I don't mind taking those chats on those lower end guys to fill out my roster.
Yeah, and just 1 second, Sia. I just put Rom and Johnson into a lineup, and it leaves you with 55-25 per golfer left. So you're really gonna have to dig Mr. Hughes, Mr. Smith, Mr. Champ down here, maybe a little Ryan Palmer, to really just be able to fit in some golfers. I mean, even if we go at 6,600 at Victor Hovland, then that leaves you at 51-66. So if you're doing both of those guys, it is going to be very difficult to fit anybody outside of that very, very low rend in. But hey, you have to be contrarian. There's 30 guys. You gotta get weird with some of this stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think some people are going to do, some of those lineups like that. Stars and scrubs makes a lot of sense. For me, I just think if I'm going to do stars and scrubs, I'm probably just going to go down just one or two levels, like a Rom and a Justin Thomas, who I like, or a Rom and a Webb Simpson, or even a Dustin Johnson and a Webb Simpson, because that's at least a $1,700 discount from the top two. So you can absolutely, I would almost recommend doing stars and scrubs, actually, now that I hear Joel. But again, stars and scrubs doesn't imply the top two necessarily. Just pick off maybe. I don't really love Colin. I would mix up those top four when you're doing stars and scrubs, which is DJ, John Rahm, Justin Thomas, and Webb Simpson.
Yeah, and just again, putting in Webb Simpson and John Rahm, again, 11,000 and 12,700, that at least leaves you with 6,500 left over. So you can really, if you still want to dip down into that $5,000 range, you can then hop up and maybe grab a Tyrrell Hatton or something along those lines. Maybe Scotty Scheffler at 9,700, but we'll get to them in a second. I was just kind of curious what that pricing would look like. So hopping down, Sia, let's go down to this 9,000 range, which is three guys. So it's Rory, it's Matsuyama, and it's Daniel Berger. Daniel Berger still criminally underrated, I'm assuming, but I'll let you tell me about that.
He is, but he yields the highest ownership percentage of these three golfers, at least as it stands right now. So, of these three, I do like Berger. The guy I like the best, if we're considering how good they've been in the last few weeks and ownership percentage, is Hideki Matsuyama. He was really good. I think he was the best in the field tee to green last week. Nothing really rattled him either, which again, for me, my history with Hideki is similar to Rahm in that, like, once they start losing it, it just kind of goes off the rails. Nothing seemed to rattle him last week. He didn't have a ton of bad shots. He just seemed really dialed in, but the few shots that were bad, he just kind of, went about his way. He's kind of like DJ in that respect right now, where like nothing, he doesn't even really seem to care. He's just kind of like going through the motions, but like that's good because the pressure is off when you have that type of personality. So I like Decky the most there. I mean, Rory is interesting. He's only 15% owned. That'll go up for sure. Everybody thinks they're going to be off Rory, and then when it comes down to it, they put in Rory. And at this price, he's so much lower than the other guys. I mean, it's part of the reason is because he's -3, of course. But no, at Decky at -4, I like the best for sure.
Yeah. And Joel, talk to me a little bit. How do you feel in this 9K, these three guys in the 9K range?
So this range, this week, I think when building your roster, it's all about that first conversation we had about how you're building your roster, right? Like, I think more strategy of roster construction than I am even golfer this week. Like, how am I doing? There's only 30 guys. A lot of these guys are really good. So this range, I'm almost completely fading. The one guy in this range who I might play is maybe Rory. And I'm really only liking Rory if it's contrarian, right? So if his ownership looks high heading into the week, I probably won't play him. But if it's going to look really low, then yeah, I'll probably put a little bit of shares of Rory a bit. I've been probably 3 weeks in a row playing Rory, thinking he's time to turn it around, and he hasn't. So now I'm like, now it's part of the week. I mean, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm done chasing Rory, and now probably the week that he'll actually do it.
Of course, that is always how it is. But again, 30 guys, I'm sure you'll have at least 1 or 2 shares of him somewhere in those contests. And little draft update, you get your third pick in yet?
I did.
Yeah.
I actually reached a little bit. There's a guy that I liked. The ADP wasn't there, but it was David Johnson. It's a PPR league. He's a running back that's like almost like a receiver. He's going to get thrown to a lot, especially now that Hopkins is on the team. So I think for PPR, he's got a safe floor, and I needed a running back, and he was the best guy I liked left. So I went and got David Johnson, and I'm about to be up again in another 2 picks.
Another 2 picks. All right. Well, we'll come back to you in a second. And again, everybody listening, everybody watching, we will be, after we are done with this golf talk in probably the next 10 minutes, we will be hopping over and just kind of C and I will just get to comment on everything that's going on. So that'll be a lot of fun. Zach's watching and he's picking. Thanks, Zach. You could tell us about your draft strategy too when we get to it. How's that sound? So let's hop down to this 8K range. Again, only a few guys. Looks like 4: Xander Schauffele, Harris English, Patrick Reed, Tony Finau. Sia, tell me a little bit about this range and how you're feeling some of these guys.
Yeah, I'm never really on Xander. I just think he's always overpriced and overvalued. It's just not going to be for me. Harris English is interesting. He's at -4. I think his price is pretty reasonable. Patrick Reed just hasn't been very good. So normally I like him at the beginning of the year. I hit an outright on him, but also I think it's a Donald Ross course, and he's not very good on Donald Ross courses either. So that's not really helping. Finau at -2 is I think a really good play. His price is reasonable. And he's been really good. He was really, really good last week, including on Sunday. So the guys I'll be riding here are Tony Finau and maybe a little bit of Harris English.
Love it. Joel, talk to me about this 8K range again. If you're building those superstars lineups, you might be fading this one too, but I'm assuming you'll have a couple of these guys at some point.
Yeah, so I'm actually typically, like you see, typically I don't love playing Xander. This week I actually do like him a bit. A few reasons. So the one course statistic that I saw that favors accurate drivers, and of the top tier, he's a very accurate driver. So that fits him. He's got a good course history here. So I'll play a little bit of him. Other than that, in this range, I like Tony. I might throw Tony in a lineup, but I'm probably fading most of these guys as well. I start getting excited when we get to the next tier. So let's go to the next tier. Now you'll start hearing my plays.
All right, talk to me, man. We'll start with you then, Joel.
Okay.
You can go from the 7K range to your draft pick. How's that sound?
There you go.
I love it.
That's perfect. So as always, right, I think it's almost like a staple for this show. I have to mention Scotty Scheffler. I mentioned him. He does well. I mentioned him. He does well. Let's keep it up. I mean, it would be wrong for me to him not to mention him because we'd just be jinxing him. So therefore, as a favor to Scotty, I'm going to mention him, and I'm also going to play him in my lineups. A guy I really liked today, this week, is Brenton Todd. So back to what I was saying before, the stat that jumps out on this course is accurate driving, and he's probably the most accurate driver in the tournament. So I think at this price, he's like a middle tier guy. You can pretty much build any type of lineup with him except for the one with Rahm and Johnson. And you can really get creative. So I'm going to probably have a lot of shares of Todd this week. And then I'm probably going to fade him. I don't love Hatton. I do like, if you don't mind if I keep going down, I do like Kisner a lot this week. I think Kisner's just in really strong form. He's playing great. He's played well here before. And again, he's accurate. He's a good putter. And this is a price range where he's normally he's obviously because of the tournament, the prices are different, but he's super affordable. So you can really do a lot of creative things with your lineup if you get him in there. Same kind of reasons I like Abraham Answer. Now he has cooled off. He was red hot coming out in the beginning of the summer. He's cooled off some. He started playing better again last week, and that was a super tough course. This course shouldn't be as difficult as last week, and I think it's going to play more to his strengths. And he's a guy that I just feel is a better golfer than this price. So if you can, as much as I can, I want to find guys that I'm getting a value on. So I feel like I'll get a nice value with Answer.
All right, and your draft pick?
So I just snagged Todd Gurley is my second running back. Now, obviously, there's huge risk with Gurley with injuries and everything like that, but there's huge upside with Gurley. Right? Gurley's a guy that could be easily be a top 10 running back, maybe even higher, especially in a PPR because they'll throw to him a lot. Now, obviously, they have Julio and Ridley, but that's just going to help him, right? That means there's going to be less attention on him especially when he's running routes out of the backfield. So I think he's another guy that I thought was a safe floor. The problem with him is the injuries, which is a big risk. I know that's always. I'll make sure I get some additional running back depth later in the draft. But right now, I like my squad. I mean, my team, 3 years ago would have been unbelievable. Right now, we're a little old, but it's okay. We're like.
Hey, that's just how it goes sometimes. All right, back to golfer. A couple more minutes. See ya. Talk to me about that 7K and I guess the top half of that 6K range a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm really glad he mentioned Brendan Todd because he's my favorite play this week. So he's starting at -3, so he doesn't have a huge shot to come back and win this thing. But the way he's playing, he absolutely has a shot. I mean, obviously you're going to need some of those top guys to really have a bad day or two. But Brendan Todd, he's starting at -3. He's 7,600. He's in that 18 to 20% range when it's all said and done, which again for a 30-person tournament isn't really that high. I don't like Sung J M, similar to Joel. I think Terrell Hatton is a decent play at -2. He certainly has upside to catch some people. And I do like Scotty Scheffler. But if I was going to rank those four guys, it would definitely be Brendan Todd first. And then it would probably be Scheffler, then Hatton, and then I'm off Im. Even though Im is starting at -4, which is above all those guys I just mentioned, his game is just way off. So
he hasn't been super great in the last few weeks. And then what about that 6K range?
6K. Okay, so Kisner I do like. I think Kisner is solid. Hovland I'm off. So for a couple reasons, he just hasn't really been that good lately, as good as I would want him to be. And honestly, around the green game is going to matter here. And he's pretty bad around the green. He's gotten a little bit better since the restart, but he's pretty bad. So I just don't want to have to rely on a guy that could just completely choke when he's, in the fringe, 20 feet away in chipping. So I'm off Hovland. The rest of the guys in that 6K range, I think Joaquin Niemann is very worthy of being in a lineup. He's playing really well. He's starting at -2. I do like Abraham Answer, probably not as much as Joel. I've sort of just taken a different view of Abraham Answer lately. So I'm not really on him. And then, he's the end of that 6K range. So if I had to rank those guys, I would start with Joaquin Niemann, then I'd go to Kisner, and then I would go to Answer. And then everybody else I'm off in that range.
Yeah. And again, we really have to pay attention to these guys in the 6 and the 5K range, especially because you're probably going to need a couple of those guys in that top tier. If not, then you're going heavy in that 8 and 7K range. So you're probably going to have to pick somebody, listening out there is going to pick some of those 6K guys, and somebody's going to make a lot of money. I do just want to say, the Tiger Woods pick last week, guys, that didn't go out so well. But we're not going to pay out too much attention to that one. So let us go to the end, pretty much. Now we're in the 5K range. This is actually the biggest range, which I think is kind of funny. But as you guys were saying, I mean, we're at -1, and then we're at even starting. So obviously these guys are going to have the most difficult time winning. But there's definitely a shot for them to gain points determined by where they finish, which I think is pretty important. So Sia, let's start with this 5K range. Talk to me a little bit about here and where, again, if we are going with Rahm, if we are going with a Rahm and Johnson lineup, or even just Johnson at some point, you're going to have to dip down here a little bit to find a lot of value.
Yeah, Sebastian Munoz is really interesting. It was particularly because he's starting at -3, which in this range is kind of a luxury because most of these guys are going to be even -1. There's a couple, or I should say one that's -2, and that's Lanto Griffin. Lanto Griffin is a guy actually that's been really good. I mean, I don't really have an argument against Lanto Griffin if you're going to do stars and scrubs. Kevin Na is also another guy like Ryan Palmer. I think probably the run for Mackenzie Hughes, Cameron Smith, and certainly Mark Leishman I'm not on. So if I had to rank these guys, and I didn't even mention Billy Horschel, as much as I like Munoz in terms of he's starting at -3, I'm not really on him. I will fit him into a couple of lineups though. But in terms of how I rank these guys in terms of ability to climb the chart, it would be Billy Horschel, Kevin Na, Ryan Palmer, and then Lanto Griffin.
Lanto. Man, that's a sweet name. And I'm so sad. Our Cockrack and Gooch, that lineup didn't do shit for me last week. That didn't work out very well.
Gooch was bad.
Gooch was bad. Gooch was very bad. Still love his name. Still my favorite guy.
And by the way, and I know you only did 3 lineups. I mean, this is really why doing maybe 10 lineups, is not really truly excessive, because I did have Tiger Woods. I had Gooch in a few. I had Tiger Woods in probably more than a few, maybe 35%. But I also had, I tripled my Draftkings money because I had a couple, maybe 3 lineups that had John Rahm, Tony Finau, and Hideki Matsuyama. So the bottom 3 weren't that great. I had Joel Dahmen in one, and a couple of guys that were kind of not great. Corey Connors, who double bogeyed 18, which didn't help me at all. But if you're ever gonna put Tiger Woods in your lineups, just make sure you diversify your portfolio, because you never want that all your chips to be in the Tiger Woods basket, so to speak.
Yes.
Or eggs in the basket, chips on the table. I'm bad with metaphors.
Peeps, man, peeps. It's almost Easter. What's up, Joel? Talk to me.
So I really like what Sia was saying there, because what I always think about, and something that I think I would recommend to all fantasy players, is this. Whatever your bankroll is for the week, my recommendation is, if let's say it's $100, instead of putting one lineup in a $100 tournament, if you can do $10 tournaments, it's going to be one, way more fun. And two, what happens is you build your player pool, right? And even like, I can't tell you how often this happens. Well, I'll have 10 guys and I'll like Tiger Woods, and Tiger Woods will be way off, and he was my favorite play, and that misses. And normally, if you don't play that way, you lose all your money. But maybe the 9th or 10th guy that I liked will go off. He's like, you know what? I was so close for the 9th, right? But as long as you play that way, your 9th or 10th guy goes off, you're still in it because you have other alternatives where if you take 10 guys, you don't have to have your number one guy hit. As long as one of the guys in your top 10 hits, right, then some of your lineups will have a chance. So from that reasoning, like, we can't say here, we're not, we can't predict the future. We can't say who's going to win every tournament. But if we're close, if we give you a pool of 10 guys that one of them does well, then you're in it. So that's the recommendation, is take a pool and then build different lineups off of that pool. And then what happens is, even though you might miss on the guy you have most confidence on, the 9th or 10th guy might actually hit, and then you're right there.
And you're right there. And Scotty Scheffler is that guy for Joel this week, it sounds like. We'll speak that one into an existence, and hopefully he keeps riding that momentum. So, Joel, let's talk about this 5K range. We'll talk about some outrights, because I don't think first round leader is really that fun of a bet this week. I don't know. Maybe it's me, but talk to me about this 5K range. Because again, if you're going Johnson, Rahm, you are going to be down deep in this 5K range.
So one of my favorite plays this week is Billy Horschel. He has, so like one of the metrics I look at is, how these guys have performed previously on the course. And he has gained the most strokes on this course than almost anybody, or the second most. So he's having strong course history. He's definitely in good form. If you watch the last couple weeks, he's been playing well. His strokes going into the tournament are low. But you know what that means? That means he's going to have to get a lot of birdies to compete, and we get more points for birdies. So I love Horschel, and especially allows you to build lineups with, if you want to get Rahm in there, you want to get DJ in there, you can do it with Horschel in your lineup. So he's going to be my most owned player probably this week, if it's not DJ. And then as I scroll down, you're going to have to get creative. It's going to be hard to play Mark Leishman after what he's shown over the last 2 months. He's just been putrid. I mean, I don't think he has a round better than, I don't think he shot a round better than 69 at all since the restart. So it's going to be hard to go to him. With me saying that, there's a good chance that he ends up shooting, 65, and that's great. But I probably won't be playing him. And if I'm not playing him, I'm up. I got to draft. Hold on. Sorry.
Okay.
Hold on.
So just to finish that thought, though, and I know this is not where he was going, but
quick, Joel, quick. Oh, he got it. Okay, sorry.
I got it.
Leishman's only at 5% ownership. I mean, he's definitely the lowest guy on the board. So I mean, if you really wanted to go contrarian, hey, listen, maybe he picked up something with his swing, yesterday. So you never know. I mean, that again, it's hard to go contrarian with 30 people. You can without Leishman, but that's a good way to just solve that issue right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he is, like, substance-wise, like, in his career, he's a good golfer. I mean, this guy, he's in the tournament. You got to do something right to get in this tournament. So it's just recently it's been bad. So you're right. I mean, if he can turn something around at 5% ownership, especially in a 30 golfer pool, there's something to like about that. But from what I've seen recently, and the one counter in his favor that I'll give is last week's course, nobody played well. So his plus 20 or whatever he was looks really ugly. But
it was
when
plus
the average,
30.
Oh, God.
It was plus 30.
That's really bad. But
his plus 20 doesn't look bad, but his plus 30, man, that looks pretty terrible.
That's pretty bad. But his defense, the middle golfer was probably plus 15 or plus 10. So plus 30 here wasn't plus 30 at a regular course. Plus 30 here was probably more like plus 10 or 15, which is still bad. But maybe a little bit more.
I see the argument you're trying to make. I don't agree with it, but I see it and I respect it. Let's just
but there's a corollary to that argument, which is if you're like plus 18 or you're plus 12 and it's day 2, like what are the chances you're going to be dialed in and fighting back to get to plus 7? Like it's just not going to happen. So you don't want to withdraw from the tournament because you really can't do that, especially with the Tour Championship going on. So what do? You just kind of like swing away and just hope that the hours go by pretty quick and you're done with the tournament. So a plus 30, is that truly how bad he played? Probably not. He was probably the worst guy on the course out of the 70, but he wasn't a plus 30 golfer last week.
How does he finish in last place? I mean, how many spots did this guy drop if he finished in last place last week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the amount of...
No, but like it had to have been pretty big, right?
Yes, but he clearly had his spot secured, so he had to be like pretty high. So I mean,
Okay.
I don't know how many he dropped, but yeah, he probably dropped 15 spots or 16 spots, but he was probably right in the middle of the pack, so it didn't matter.
Makes sense.
I don't think you lose points for doing badly. You only
No,
gain
but
points for
everybody
doing
else
well.
would have gained
Right.
In
so
terms of
much
passing
more
him,
than
yeah.
him, right?
Right.
Like anybody in
Right.
that 40 range, like had the opportunity. But that's just more a random thought that popped in my head. All right, so that is our DFS breakdown. Make sure to follow at Draftmaster Flex. Make sure to follow at Sia Najad for more of that. We've been getting a lot of tweets on in the Twitterverse with people making money on PGA. So, and I keep
Yeah, it's
getting
huge.
congratulated, which is awesome. And I'm just here to kind of facilitate the conversation with you guys. So I appreciate that gentleman who keeps tweeting at me. I will continue to help in any way that I can. Just ask. I'm always here. So let's talk about some of these outrights. It's going to be really weird. Let me actually, I kind of want to pull up the outrights because it's probably really crazy. So Sia, how do you even look at something like this? Because again, with it being so, I mean, with everybody starting already, some people at -10, others already starting at -5. Like, how do you even go about, like, are we really just, I know you like only 30 to 1 and over, but like, how are you looking at potentially betting on this tournament?
So first of all, for once, DraftKings has sort of done a disservice to its clientele because there are two ways to bet this tournament. One with starting strokes applied, which is the -10, the -8, and the other one with starting strokes not applied. So you're like basically like a regular golf tournament. You're just starting from even. So a lot of websites, including one that I use, has both options. So you can do starting strokes apply, starting strokes don't apply. So, and obviously the odds are going to be vastly different from the two. So if we're just going to look at DraftKings, my picks are the 30 to 1 shots and longer. I really only have two that I think could conceivably catch the leaders, or I should say pass them and have the leaders, drop, sort of fade to the back. Those two are Hideki Matsuyama at -4. So he's 35 to 1. The way he played last week, he could easily pass these guys if they just have a mediocre tournament throughout the 4 days, and which on this course is very, very possible. So I like him at 35 to 1. The super long shot that I like, and we talked about him, Joel brought him up first, at 150 to 1 and starting at -3, which is 7 shots back. But like Joel said, it's 7 shots back of one guy, 5 shots back of the next guy, and so on, is Brandon Todd. 150 to 1. This guy has been really, really, really good. And then once, I'll get Joel's response to that, and then I'll address a couple of the guys I like if you have the option of starting strokes not applying.
So I do just want to say, you might not just have scrolled down far enough because DraftKings does have starting strokes not applying. You just had to scroll.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go. Okay. I see it now.
Nice and
Thanks.
easy. I thought they would have, had it at the top, making it very, very clear, but I accidentally kept scrolling, and that's where I found it. So we're still good there. So, Sia, do you want to touch upon no starting strokes applied?
Yeah, so I was going to say Webb Simpson, but they have Webb Simpson at 11 to 1. One of the sites I use has him at 14 to 1. So I'm again, shop your price. 11 to 1 I would never take, even though it seems like a small difference. It's not. Hideki at 19 to 1, I like. Tony Finau at 19 to 1, I like, but not as much as Hideki. And then let's go back to Brandon Todd. On the site I looked at, he was 60 to 1, and here he is 70 to 1. So again, this is starting from scratch. I think out of 30 players, if a few of those quote top guys don't, have great tournaments, Brendan Todd can just coast and beat everybody. And honestly, he might not have the pressure that he normally has on Sundays because he won't be competing for that first place prize, but he certainly will be competing potentially if he's leading, from even par for, like, let's say the 6th place prize, which is 1.9 million. So there's pressure, but there's not pressure on him on Sunday potentially if he's not chasing the actual leader.
My goodness, 1.9 million
for 6th place.
I know, for 6th place, man. Good for them. Well deserved. They're the best in the world for a reason. Joel, talk to me. How are you looking at betting this? Are you going to try and do a little bit of both, or are you particularly more on one side than the other?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's definitely the type of person you are, right? Like me and Sia always talk about, we like to take shots, right? It's not as fun in a golf tournament to bet on a guy at 6 to 1. So I like the concept of when you can get those odds. So for me, I'm looking at I'm actually more excited because you're getting now some good golfers who odds are actually blowing up because they have to start at a disadvantage. And all that means is you need some of the top 2 or 3 of the top guys to not play well, and the disadvantage is erased. So that's how I'm going to be doing. I'm going to take a couple small bets at some big paydays. Billy Horschel's one, who I like as a, he's going to have a huge weekend. I like him to do that. Todd, I really like this week. I will say I like Todd more for DraftKings than I do betting him outright. Unless you're doing without the advantage, then I like Todd for that reason. But Todd's not someone that usually will go like, 8 or 9 under, and you're going to need someone who's going to do that to win with the strokes advantage. So that's why you got to chase a guy who might have a bit more volatile, because they're going to have to go off one day to actually get into this tournament. So I think Horschel can. Horschel's a guy that can get you an 8 under one day and then neutralize the strokes and be right in it. So that's who I'm looking at for those reasons. It's because of the weird strokes thing, it makes it really hard to bet, which I usually like, top 20 and top 10. Because it's almost like you have to take the guys that are up there, and their odds are like even or minus. So
yeah, I think
I'm kind of
a bunch of guys up top are minus. Dustin Johnson minus 455 to finish in the top 10. Like, all right, we can't really do much with that. Thanks, DraftKings.
Yeah.
But hey, it is what it is. I think it's interesting. And yes, that Horschel pick is 225 to 1. So I don't know. Anybody else there wants to put $2 down on it with me? Maybe we could have a nice little almost $500 payday right there. I'm not angry about that. So anybody else in terms of betting? Because I think it's just a weird week.
Yeah, it's a weird week. From straight betting, there's really not much you can do there. The one thing there's two there was 2 bets that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about. It was Kisner top 10, which you can get plus 300. So again, that's not something I'd put a lot on because it's a bit of a reach and it's only 300. But that's something fun if you want to track all week. That could be a fun one. And the other one is Horschel top 10. You get plus 450. If you're buying Horschel, if you like what I'm saying, it's more realistic that he has a good week and finishes in the top 10 than it is him winning the tournament. So that could be a fun one where if you want to maybe try and get a win, that'd be the more recommended bet.
I love it. Well, that is our breakdown of the 2020 Tour Championship down in Atlanta. We had the DFS, we had the betting, and now we get to talk about the Win Daily Sports Fantasy Football Draft. So you may have seen before, we do have the draft in front of us. We do see, so if anybody is watching, you can see who Joel is queuing. So I apologize, Joel. Hopefully nobody out there, Zach in particular, is looking to steal any of your picks. But let's go over your team so far. So talk to us a little bit about who you've gotten and how this team is shaping up for you.
Yeah, so I'm trying to find out. Is there a way I can just show you my full roster? It's down here.
Yeah,
so
that's it.
My first pick was Thomas, as you all know. And just for value reasons, this was not a strategic plan. I wasn't planning to go 0 RB or anything like that. For value reasons, Hopkins was the best player on the board on round 2. So I went with him. It's a PPR league, so I was trying I am leaning heavier toward pass catchers, right? And so I have maybe the 2 best pass catchers in the league, which helps. So then obviously I needed to get a running back because starting to get these slim pickings. I reached a little bit on David Johnson. He's a high upside play. That he also is almost a receiver out of the backfield. So for PPR, I thought I get a little bit of an advantage on him. And then I came back and took Gurley. So I filled out my running back position. I definitely went high risk at running back. So I do want to get some depth. And then I came back. I took Mark Andrews at tight end. I think he's going to be a top 3 or 4 tight end. After the big 2, it's him and Ertz, I think. So I like having a tight end in a good tight end in PPR. I would probably fade tight end in a regular league, but with PPR, I want to get those catches. And if I can get a guy that's going to get a lot of catches, I feel good about Andrews. And then the pick you guys heard earlier was when I almost missed it, was Kupp. And again, like I said, he's another guy that should be able to get me over 100 receptions. So for my flex spot, especially when you're like, oh, who do I play? You can lean on a guy that's going to have a safe floor in terms of targets and receptions. That's a good position to be in, especially in that flex where you can rotate guys in. And then for my last pick, one thing I read about my last pick I had was J.K. Dobbins is really good as a receiver out of the Baltimore backfield. And Baltimore is going to he's going to get plenty of play. They run the ball more than anybody in the league. They're not going to hand it off to Ingram 30 times. So he's going to get play. And if they're going to throw to him too, they don't have many weapons, right? They have Brown, but other than that, they have Andrews. But other than that, not really a receiver that many people know about. So they might throw to him. He might get a good share of targets. So I like him at least as a good, safe third running back, especially if Gurley or Johnson gets some injury issues.
And now you are on the clock. So talk to us. Take a little bit of time. Take a little bit of time. Talk to us. Who is on the draft board? We kind of know your team. Where are you looking to go with this pick right here?
So I need a quarterback, but there's a player left. There's plenty of good quarterbacks left. I feel like if I skip that now, I'll be fine. I'm reading and hearing all good things about Gronk. And the way my team's looking with all old guys that are going for the resurgence, I might complete it. And I may just have a theme and just go, hey, the old guys for the comeback. So I think I'm going to take Gronk. I think he has a really good upside. So yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Sia, do you have any, you can be the analyst. Talk to us. How do you feel about Joel's team so far, and how do you like that Gronk pick?
Okay, so I love the zero running back approach. I mean, again, people have a different impression of what a zero running back really is. But these days, if you're skipping out on running back the first 2 rounds, that's pretty much zero running back as far as I'm concerned, especially in a 12-team league. So I like what you did because you've got upside running backs, including J.K. Dobbins. And really, if 2 of those 3 hit, you're in good shape. I absolutely hate the Gronk pick.
Me too. I wanted to talk him out of it, but I didn't want to do it.
No, the reason is, first of all, there was a couple other tight ends that I liked ahead of him, and I don't know who was at running back or wide receiver. I agree with your analysis about not taking quarterback. The problem with Gronk, first of all, he's kind of older, and we don't know if he's really going to get a full allotment of snaps like people think he might. But more importantly, there's 3 tight ends on that team that will be catching passes. There's Cameron Brate, there's OJ Howard, and there's Gronk, who, is at least from an age and ability standpoint, we don't really know where Gronk is at, but we do know where Cameron Brate and OJ Howard are. And then, of course, you have the headache of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So I just, and they've got some slot receivers that are pretty good too. So I just think from a target share standpoint, you could have a game where Gronk is technically starting maybe, but like he's got 3 looks, and he catches 1 for 9 yards. Maybe it's a touchdown. I'm not, listen, that's the floor, obviously. Obviously, he can have a game where he has 2 touchdowns and 75 yards, but I don't ever want to get involved with a player. Forget about the fact that he's coming back from football, from the WWE, which we had a laugh with Robert Griffin III last Wednesday about that. That was pretty funny, but man of the people, I think he called him. But just forget about that for a second. There's just too many mouths to feed. So if in that round, I just probably would have gone somewhere else.
I probably agree. I think you could have waited a little bit longer for Gronk too. I like how Cia and I just get to berate you with how you're wrong. I think this part's kind of fun, so I'm glad we're doing this. But all right, actually, yeah. Do you have rebuttal or anything, Joel? I guess we should move forward for a second.
Let me rebuttal. So your analysis is fair. But the reason why I took him is for this. I already kind of have my starters in place other than quarterback. So at this point, I'm seeking upside. Right? At this point, I don't need a safe another running back that's going to get 15 touches. I need to find a guy that, listen, let's say Gronk comes back healthy. He's not that old, right? He just was hurt. He's in his early to mid 30s. Gronk could be a top 3 tight end if he's in that offense, back to his old self, playing with Tom Brady. So that was the thought process. It wasn't as a guy that I want to play week to week. It was a thought process of I'm taking a dart on a guy that could be, a top 3 upside pick in a depth position where I already have my starters anyway.
So I will say this, because even if you don't have a lot of faith in Gronk, you could draft him and then 4 rounds later get a guy at tight end to just like make sure you have that position secured. Because there's plenty of tight ends that aren't even getting drafted that I actually like a Blake Jarwin, for example. With that said, I just don't know who else was on the board. So, I mean, you might be right, Joel, but if there was any sort of running back on the board or high upside receiver, I would have gone there first. And like Michael said, I would have waited and gotten Gronk in the next round because I think he would have been there. Michael, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think you could have just waited. If you really wanted him, I think you could have waited at least one more round to this pick that you have coming up at about 102, it looks like. So definitely excited about that. And yeah, this is fun. Hopefully, I know Zach is watching, so he knows who you're all queued up. But so as you said, I like the strategy. Like I am a little bit more passive. I'm a little more conservative when it comes to my bench. I'm just looking for guys, especially with the way you did running back. If you went with someone like Gurley, you went with someone like Johnson. We've seen what those guys have done last year. I understand there is that floor, so to speak, but I think Todd Gurley's floor is 0 because he gets hit once he's done. I mean, obviously that's for anybody, but specifically with him and his knee, I think there's the opportunity. Also, thinking about it now, you should just cue a bunch of random people so that way anybody watching, they can actually know who you're actually thinking about drafting. So I know Zach is watching. So definitely, yeah, there you go. Just cue a bunch of people. That'll be fun.
You know what though, Michael? What I will say about the Gurley pick and who was the other one? It was Gurley and David Johnson. The one thing, because I don't really like them either because of the injury risk and how they've looked the last time we've seen them, which of course is recency bias, but there's some actual information we can analyze too. But with that said, you have to consider the fact that there isn't a legitimate backup for either of those guys. And what that means to me is that the coaches have some faith in the health outcome of both of these players, because you would think a guy like Devontae Freeman or a guy like Leonard Fournette just being out there, they'd be like, hey, listen, we're not so sure about Gurley getting more than 12 touches a game, so please come on in. You can spell him, basically 40% of the time. The fact that hasn't happened, or the fact that there's not a big time rookie that either of those two teams drafted to basically supplant when the inevitable injury happens, that does speak to the fact that maybe we're overvaluing the injury idea versus versus the upside that Joel's talking about.
Yeah, I do think that the ceiling is high, but I also think that's the only thing is I think the floor is a lot lower than you think it might be. That's just the only thing. Again, David Johnson. Now, last year, David Johnson was weird because if you look at his stats, he actually started out the year really, really good. He either said something or did something and pissed off Cliff Kingsbury and was pretty much in the doghouse from that point forward, which was really
he got
weird.
hurt. He got hurt first.
Yeah, but they brought in Kenyon Drake before he was hurt. It was just a weird situation. He had 3 or 4 really good games with over 20 points, especially in PPR. And then it just got weird. And then he started saying stuff on Twitter, I guess I'm not playing anymore, when he clearly was healthy enough to play. Obviously, they preferred Kenyon Drake maybe in that offense. So I don't hate the David Johnson pick. I mean, I don't hate either pick, especially with the way it went out, because again, you're ending with Michael Thomas. So that's a guaranteed amount of points already. I mean, that's 100 catches. That DeAndre Hopkins, that's 100 catches right there. So as you said with PPR, you're at a floor of 200 points, I think, with those dudes. And then we can put on touchdowns and everything. So I think it's exciting. But you're coming up here again. Talk to me a little bit. Again, I understand your strategy of really trying to find some high upside guys with that bench. What are you thinking 44 seconds until your pick? Are you trying to go a little bit more deep into running back? Are you trying to grab a couple more wide receivers? Again, you have 3 really good ones right now. Or are you just going to try and grab another old dude just to kind of complete the triumvirate?
So right now, my thought process is, because I have a very volatile running back core, I want to just get another back that will, at least I can feel like we'll get some consistent playing time. So that's where I'm looking now, is just a safe running back that I can put out there in case I get with an injury or something that I know on a week-to-week basis, I can get points from. Okay. And honestly, looking at the board, it's slim pickings.
Yes.
There's not a lot here I love. I'm thinking about Duke because I have David, so it's if David goes down or something, then it's a handcuff, but it's also a guy I can play because they'll throw him a lot. I'm thinking about Mac because Mac, I think, is going to start the year. But the problem with those plays are, he's going to eventually lose carries, and, you win fantasy leagues at the end of the year, not at the beginning. So that's the type of play that, I probably would want to wait another round or two before I took a risk on someone like him. And then, I know it's hard in fantasy to play a Patriots running back, but I feel like I might be able to get their starter here with Harris. He also might not be the starter, but it's another risky play. But if I can lock up the starting back on the Patriots at this point, I think that would put my team in good shape. So I think that's who I'm going to go with. Or I could change my mind and just go with Sony Michel, who's on the same team as I think I saw he was still left. Yeah, he's way down here. All right, what do you guys think?
C and I will hold to the end. This is your team, man. We're just here to just kind of pounce. And, we're vultures in this situation, if I may.
I'm going to go with the incumbent.
Okay. All right. See ya.
Sony Michel. I actually like that play better than Damian Harris. I think I think everybody's down on Sony Michel for the obvious reasons because he's had that foot injury and he's been nursing it for about 6 months, but he's back and he's a better running back than Damian Harris. I mean, he's just way more talented, way more athletic, faster, all of that stuff. So I like that. I did notice that Chris Thompson was on there, and I thought in a PPR league, maybe take him. But, who knows what's going to happen? Like when cut day happens, that Jacksonville might pick up a running back that can also catch as well, and Chris Thompson all of a sudden gets marginalized.
Chris Thompson is very favored in that backfield. I just will say with Jay Gruden coming over, that's when Chris Thompson had those 2 really good years, as Sia. I guess it was more like 1.5 years till he snapped his leg. That was so sad. But yeah, I think he has a great opportunity to really do some stuff. And I think one thing, especially about Chris Thompson, I think, garbage time is always fun. But I think he's just going to be a fourth quarter back because the Jags are going to be down by so many points. He will always be on the field in the fourth quarter because they're always going to have that outlet. They're always going to need that check down. But Joel, you were saying? Sorry.
Yeah, so I've been doing, I'm not sure if you saw, DraftKings set up best ball drafts where you can do your best ball drafts on DraftKings. It's a lot of fun if you want to practice. So I've been doing a lot of those. And in best ball, I love Chris Thompson. I'm taking a lot of them from that perspective. But for here, it's harder to know which week to play him, right? Mm-hmm. There'll be too many weeks where I'll have 10 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown on my bench. And then the next week you play him and he has, 3 catches for 20 yards. So that's the way I stay away from guys like that because it's just a guessing game week to week when they're going to pop off. So I love guys like him in best ball, but when I have to make the decision, I try to get guys that are a little bit more consistent with carries and things like that.
I like that. So
that makes sense.
So you have 3 wide receivers, you have 4 running backs, you have 2 tight ends. You still haven't grabbed that quarterback, which I still think I saw Matt Ryan go off. Ooh, Preston Williams just went. I assume that was Nick. Just grabbing Preston Williams. Shout out to our good buddy Sticks Picks. We appreciate him as always. Are you considering quarterback at this position? You have the page pulled up, or are you still trying to maybe catch another wide receiver or running back before they fall a little too far?
So there's one other player that will not be named yet that I'm hoping will fall to me. It's not a quarterback. And if he does, I'm going to take him. If not, then I probably will go quarterback at this point. Mm-hmm. There are enough quarterbacks left where I feel like if I have to wait another round, I'll still get someone that I'll be happy with. So I'm not panicking yet at quarterback. If there's still other guys I need to go get, then I'm going to go get them.
Okay. See, keep going.
No, I was going to say, because most people who have drafted a quarterback already, which is most of the league, obviously, they're probably not going to invest in a backup quarterback at this point in the draft. So it kind of leaves a couple rounds for Joel to kind of, not worry about somebody, because those people that drafted a quarterback are probably going to try, the upside receiver or the, last running back that might get playing time. So yeah, I kind of like that strategy. There's enough out there.
One thing, I totally agree with that strategy, but we also have to know who we're drafting against, right? We know Jason is waiting for that Ben Roethlisberger in the, what round are you in? Probably this round, next round. We know Jason's waiting and Sticks is waiting for that Tom Brady pick as well. So I think it would just have to know who you're drafting against and how they're going to draft, because I do think that that does change it. And who just got Mike Gesicki? Was that Nick as well?
So I'd also like to know, Joel, how many picks do you? Because there's a couple guys I see on the screen that I quite like.
Mm. Oh.
Yeah, I have 4 more bench spots, a quarterback, and then defense and kicker.
Wow, so you guys are using kickers. That's kind of weak.
Losers.
I agree.
Yeah, nobody does that.
It's not like a third of the game, you idiots. Chase Edmonds just went. I actually really like Chase Edmonds this year because I think Kenyon Drake, especially already being hurt. Now, I know he came out and said he's going to take everybody's fantasy football team to the moon, but you can't do that if you're in crutches, buddy. So I don't mind Chase Edmonds super late, and it sounds like he went a little earlier. Tony Pollard now. I mean, I don't know. We kind of saw when Zeke goes down, the offense doesn't, that running back. It's like taking Wayne Gallman or taking, I think the Giants have Deion Lewis now. Not quite the same. You're just here for Saquon Barkley. Let's be honest. So
it's not though. Tony Pollard is way better than Wayne Gallman. It's not even close.
I would agree with that, but still, I mean, it's still, I don't know, doesn't really do too much for me, especially with all those pass catchers. So talk to us, Joel. You said you were waiting for someone to drop. Did they drop to you?
They did, and now I'm torn between 2. So my thought process is this. I can lock up the Patriots backfield, take Harris, at least knowing I have the running back for the Patriots. And with my questionable running back field, that security should help my roster. The best player on the board for me right now is Deebo Samuel. Yeah, he's hurt. He's going to miss a few weeks. I can afford that. But I feel like I'd have the best player if I.
Here's the thing with that IR slot. You can take Deebo, throw him into your IR slot immediately, and then if you don't get somebody at the end of your draft, you can just go and snag him right either off waivers or wait the 2 days and just pick someone up right there. So that's a strategy I talked a little bit about on SiriusXM, because if everyone has IR slots now because of COVID, you can snag him, throw him in your IR slot. He'll be there. Same thing with Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, but regardless, Deebo is the pick. That's what I was looking at. I mean, the upside there is immense. I mean, he could literally be a wide receiver 1 or 2 for you once he's healthy, which, by the way, could be week 1, but more likely week 2 or week 3.
Definitely draft because you're getting close.
I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, he's taking Damian Harris.
Here's the thing. My draft strategy: never take a Patriots running back ever in any situation, because it never works. Because the week you play Damian Harris, it's going to be James White. The week you play Sony Michel, it's going to be Damian Harris, and you're just going to kick yourself over and over and over again. Maybe Deebo's still there when you get there. I don't know. Somebody just picked Anthony Miller. Shout out that guy. I know him. I'm sure he's a great person on the Win Daily Sports team. We appreciate the hell out of him, but we will see. So we have a couple picks left. I think. Do you want to stick here? So yeah, I mean, they're kind of at the end. I don't want to bore people too much either. So
well, let's talk about what's left on the board here. Can we see? I mean, I know we can see his queue, but
yeah, can you just go to top, just overall?
Here you go.
Okay. So
because I do think this is an area where people kind of mail it in where you really don't have to.
And see, Tyler Higbee's still there, man. That's like, how is Tyler Higbee still there? That is pretty. I think you could. Oh man, I'm kind of pissed off you took Gronk now. Robbie Anderson, John Brown, more of a best ball. I don't know. Mike Williams is hurt. Tyrell Williams, who's just said today that he is going on the IR. That is unfortunate. So he's probably. Did it say he was out for the year, or is he designated to return?
He's out for the year.
He is. Yeah, that sucks. So that's pretty unfortunate. So I assume Ruggs.
Brian Edwards and Hunter Renfrow would be decent plays for the Raiders there.
It could be interesting. You still haven't grabbed your quarterback yet, huh?
No, I think that's where we're gonna come next. Is we're gonna grab a quarterback here.
I mean, that's
a lot of good quarterbacks available.
Yeah. There's plenty of options. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at
who just took Deebo. Who just took Deebo?
Maybe next year.
Oh, I don't know who that is. I forgot. We don't know their names. Maybe next year, if you're listening. I think it's just Zach at this point. But if you're listening, tell us how good it feels to take Deebo that late. Carson Wentz, he's already hurt. People, man. Zach, what are you doing? Zach, why did you take Carson Wentz? He's already hurt.
If he has another quarterback, that pick makes sense.
I don't know. There goes Higbee. There goes Tom Brady. 1, 2. Who the hell's on auto draft already? My goodness. Win Daily. I mean, this is like a detriment to our brand. If we have people in the Win Daily Sports draft and they're just putting themselves on auto draft, this is where leagues are won. What are we doing, guys?
Joel, talk to me about the quarterbacks you like here.
So my strategy is going to be to grab, if I can get in my next maybe 2 or 3 picks, 2 of these guys and play matchups. And so that's what my plan is. And so if that's your plan, or you're going to play matchups, then I would love to get Drew Brees, because when you can get him at home and then have someone else that play when he's on the road, that's going to be a nice little duo. So if Brees lasts me, I'm going to take Brees, just play him on his whole games, and then I'll have someone else for when he's on the road. And I have to have Michael Thomas, so it'll be a nice combo.
There you go. And you can snag Drew Brees. I think that is fantastic. And one thing I will say on the SiriusXM Win Daily show, 11 to 1, Saturdays and Sundays. Sia is now on Saturdays. I'm now on Sundays. We figured out, not this Sunday, though, because your boy's getting married. But
wow.
So thank you, Sia. I appreciate that. But we were actually talking with Brandon Steiner, and he is very in on Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady this year, saying with what the Packers did to Aaron Rodgers drafting Jordan Love, and then reports coming out of camp saying Jordan Love has looked horrendous. I think Aaron Rodgers is either going to completely mail it in, or Aaron Rodgers is going to have a nice chip on his shoulder and try and get back to that MVP form. I don't think we're going to see MVP Rodgers ever again, really, because I mean that year was just insane. But see, how do you feel about Aaron Rodgers, especially this late? I mean, if you can have Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers as your two quarterbacks, I mean, we're talking 2012, like 2015 here for a second, but still, I mean, that's pretty solid even here in 2020.
Matt LaFleur is the worst thing to happen to that franchise in a long time.
Wow.
In a long, long time. They could be
goodness.
competing for a Super Bowl this year, but they drafted Jordan Love, who you didn't need to see his training camp this week to know that Jordan Love wasn't good. Just watch him at Utah State the entire year last year.
Yeah.
Everything was bad. The mechanics, the decision-making. It just, when he threw it 50 yards, it looked like a nice ball. It looked like it was Mahomes or something. But like there were so few good balls that he threw, so few good decisions. It's just so sad. And the problem with Aaron Rodgers is, you draft AJ Dillon, you already have Williams, and you have Aaron Jones. You're going to be running the ball quite a bit. They don't have much receiver. Like after Adams, what do you have? Alan Lazard. You don't really have a dominant tight end either. So I think Rodgers is okay this late. I mean, he's definitely has some upside depending on the matchups. But I'm so down on the Packers. I think the Vikings win that division, and I think I think you're going to see Aaron Rodgers on a different team as early as next year.
Wow.
As early as next year.
I'm going to have to take that as a clip and throw that on Twitter because that is very high. I'll take that whole Packers spiel and throw that up there because I agree. I don't understand what they did. Poor Aaron Rodgers. Why do you pay this guy $40 million a year, draft him a backup quarterback, a running back, and then a fullback? I don't know really what the hell you're going to do with that. I don't remember the rest of the draft. I'll be honest. It's been so long since then, but it makes no sense, man. And as we were talking, Aaron Rodgers did go. AJ Dillon went. We have Robbie Anderson go pretty late. Again, this late for Robbie Anderson is probably, I mean, I don't know why everyone loves DJ Moore so much. It's still very, very confusing to me. But if people are going to draft him and Curtis Samuel above Robbie Anderson, I mean, I know Teddy Bridgewater doesn't really like to throw the ball too far, but I think the upside with Anderson is significantly more. Chris Thompson just went, and Josh Kelly, the Chargers backup running back. I know Justin Jackson is kind of in the mix for backup as well, but they drafted this kid at UCLA, if I'm not mistaken. So he has some pretty good potential there.
There's some good receiver value still. I mean, as I see Joel scrolling down, I mean, Sammy Watkins is interesting. At least you can grab a share of the Kansas City offense and hope he stays healthy and sort of takes all the targets and yards that people think McCole Hardman might take. So I think that's interesting. There was at least I think Brandon Ayuk might have still been there, depending on what happens with Debo and how quickly Ayuk gets kind of, acclimated to the offense. He could be a really strong play. Like the one thing in a Kyle Shanahan offense, like you don't really even need to be that good. You just need to be fast and be in space. And that's what Kyle Shanahan can do for you. And that's part of the reason he drafted Brandon Ayuk. He's very good on the wide receiver screens and the short routes and things of that nature. So,
we lost Joel.
That's a good play too.
That stinks. I'm hearing a lot. Michael Pittman too apparently is getting a lot of love in Indianapolis with Phillip Rivers at this point. And someone else, can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Ian Hartz on Twitter was talking, and he was saying, maybe it wasn't Ian, so I apologize if I read that incorrect, but Melvin Gordon goes to the Chargers, didn't have a season with over 20 catches, and then he goes and has multiple 50-catch seasons. So they're saying a lot of the same things about Jonathan Taylor. Didn't have a single catch with 20 catches, a single year with 20 catches, and then has the opportunity to go in and catch a bunch of balls. Philip Rivers loves throwing the ball to the backs, as we absolutely know. So Joel is gone. I really hope his computer didn't die. That would really screw some stuff up. You can find him at DraftMasterFlex on Twitter. You can find him in the Win Daily Sports Discord as well. Sia, where can everybody find you on the internet?
Hey, and by the way, what's his Twitter tag? Because I want people to be able to criticize his Gronkowski pick.
At DraftMasterFlex.
So okay, gotcha.
Yep.
All right, so that's his DraftKings handle too, is it not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's all of his stuff. He really went hard on that name. So whatever.
It's one of those things where it's like, that's kind of a cheesy name, and then you see like he's winning like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're like, yeah, you can do whatever you want.
He's got it. Nothing I can do.
Hey, real quick before I forget, and I think Joel might have just texted us. He probably did like lose power or something, but hopefully, listen, it's the end of the draft. Hopefully, they just auto drafted Brandon Ayuk or Sammy Watkins because they were at the top. I forgot to mention John Thompson, so just like a quick story about John Thompson. So I grew up in the DC area. My dad used to take me to Georgetown Hoya games all the time, and we were lucky enough to get like 10th row seats, 8th row seats sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And it was really cool. And it was a really interesting dichotomy because Georgetown is a Catholic school. And, at all the games, I'm not really good with naming whatever the, religious figures are for these Catholic schools, but whatever games. And Joel, I'm telling a story about John Thompson and the Hoyas. You'd have all those guys, those like Catholic priests or whatever, they'd be in sort of like the first or second row. And John Thompson, every other word was a curse word. I mean, literally, he's all over the refs. He's got that white towel draped on his shoulder, and he is just drilling the refs. And it's just kind of, all coaches kind of do that, but it's an interesting thing to see when you have sort of like all those like the Catholic figures kind of sitting there, and they're just kind of like, not really, not even really reacting. But more importantly, that's just kind of a side story. More importantly, he was such a mentor to so many people. I mean, obviously like the Iversons and the Ewings, but people that didn't even play with Georgetown. I went to Georgetown basketball camp, and it wasn't just Hoyas that would come back and play in the summer and just like have a good time and, meet back up and, whatever you want to say. Like, it was other people too that he was mentoring. And I think that's one of those things where we'll never kind of hear about that. But the big point I wanted to bring up, I think it was 1989. It was sometime in the late 80s. John Thompson literally walked off the court. A gesture, basically the NCAA was trying to pass what was called Proposition 48. And it was basically going to exclude a lot of African-American athletes from participating because of sort of new academic standards that were going to be thrust upon them. I think a stat came out that if Proposition 48 had been held up, 47% of those athletes would have never graduated. So he literally walked off the court in the late 80s to basically, try to get some momentum to strike down what he thought was an unfair principle or an unfair amendment that was going to be passed by the NCAA. And it's just interesting to me because we're seeing all these courageous things happen, or whatever you want to call it, from Colin Kaepernick to LeBron James to everybody in the NBA, even the NHL and the MLB and the NFL are all kind of participating to some extent. But like, to have a guy in the late 80s do that, a black coach at a predominantly white school who could have walked out and he could have basically been signing his own, pink slip, so to speak, because a lot of people back then wouldn't have taken that type of thing. So it's just interesting. Like, I think if you really read about John Thompson and talk about or read about or research all of his peers and how much they respected him and how so many of the players not only graduated, I think the graduation rate for all of his players overall was like 95%, which is crazy. So, I mean, he was just such he was so much more than a coach. And I just felt like bringing it up just because, he recently passed. But I think when we're looking back and we're looking at like heroes of today, we should remember, even within the athletic spectrum, we should remember the heroes of, yesterday and the 90s and the 80s, because those guys, there's a reason why they commanded so much respect. There's a reason why they're, trending on Twitter. It's not just because it's just some basketball coach. It's because a guy that was so influential in so many ways beyond basketball.
Very nice. Well put. I think it is fantastic. He, as you said, mentored a lot of players and he touched a lot of lives, which is very important. And yeah, you could tell through all the tributes, through everything that's been going on. I think it's fantastic. And I totally agree. We kind of have to remember how we got to this point, not just remembering that this point happened. I think that's the most important part. So very well said, Sia. Joel, we were updated by Zach. Thank you, Zach, that you did pick Ayuk. So glad to hear that. So nice. You did get one of those receivers. So we'll see what happens there. Have you had one of your last, do you have another pick to give us before we sign off for the night?
Yeah, so the quarterback, I waited a little too long on the quarterbacks. I thought Cam was going to drop to me. He went the pick before. So I just snagged, which is not bad, which I'm not that upset about. I just snagged Jared Goff as my second quarterback. So still solid. I mean, in good matchups, he's going to be able to have some great games. So I'll be able to play the matchup game with Breeze and Goff. And I have one more pick. I might seek out one more quarterback. There's another receiver out there that I might snag too. So it's between a third quarterback. And if you're listening, it's fine. The third quarterback I'm targeting just because of what you said earlier, Michael. The Jaguars are so bad that they're gonna have to throw so much that it's almost like remember like Fitzpatrick was pretty good last year because he threw 50 times a game. You're bound to get points if you're gonna throw that many times. So I think Minshew's gonna be the same way. And they got some good young weapons, and now they don't even have a running back to hand it off to. So it's like all they're gonna do is drop back and throw. So I like taking a flyer on him this year and seeing if he has some nice positive regression.
I love Gardner Minshew so much. Positive aggression. Dude was actually pretty good last year. He was one of the best rookie quarterbacks last year. I mean, I thought he was great, and unfortunately, the Jags are pretty much just trading everyone around him, so he doesn't even have a shot. I hope, and I say this in the weirdest way possible, I hope the Jags let him go. They draft Trevor Lawrence. He goes to the Patriots, and he becomes the next Tom Brady, because that's a man I can get behind. But Joel, we already gave everybody your Twitter handle, DraftMasterFlex. CNI. Not going to say you're poking fun. You're the guy that wins $100,000, so there's really nothing we can say. Sia, where can everybody find you on the internet?
At Sia Nejad, SIANEJAD.
You can find me at Michael Raziel1. Make sure to follow us at Win Daily Sports. Make sure to hop over to windailysports.com. We have free content. We have paid content, and it's all great. And everybody, we hope you make it a very profitable evening.